So we got together with the leaders in our presidential director and above meeting. We said, how can we as leaders and as a community help? And I'll never forget the moment that I had. I'm in Jamaica and I'm flying into Jamaica, and I know that the next morning I got to be up early, 8 a.m., to go meet some young children for breakfast so that we could serve them breakfast. And I'll never forget, as we handed out the shakes to these young children, these 4, 5-year-old children that lived in absolute poverty and despair. I'll never forget thinking that they have no idea that things that they're putting in their body, the lack of nutrition that they have right now, is costing them the rest of their life. When you're malnourished, you don't develop the same way you do when you're nourished. Mentally, physically, and spiritually, it's all the same. These young children they're getting rations for food. And it's not just in Jamaica, it's all over America that this is happening. And I remember being a kid in poverty, living off of scraps and mac and cheese and, potatoes and anything that was starch-oriented that they could feed you. I remember those feelings of hunger pain, and I remember how they would interrupt me when I was supposed to be learning in school. I remember that vividly. And think about how many people right now, do you know that 1.1 million people this year alone have now entered the class of poverty? 1.1 million more people than last year. And the number is growing, and yet the fact showed you that donations to those very individuals in need, the future of America, the future of the world, our children, have gone down sharply. And I've heard testament after testament within our local communities. Children need to be met with assistance, and our products need to be in their bodies. Do you know what the most difficult nutrient to get when you're in poverty? Protein. Well, what do we need protein for? I remember when the Katrina disaster happened. They were sending rations of breads, and God bless everyone who was sending those rations. But those young children needed protein to grow. And that's the fuel for growth, right? And so you look at the community of Michigan as one example, and think about the communities that you're a part of in California, Alaska, all over the globe. Who in your community is going hungry right now that should be fed? What boys and girls clubs could we work with? What preschool programs? What after-school programs? How could we make a difference at Visalis was the challenge that we put out there to our leaders. And we came up with a community challenge. And as you saw, the goal in the community challenge is to serve 100,000 meals. Now, that's a tall goal, 100,000 meals. We've actually gone through and figured out ways where we could do this efficiently, and we can match, along with our community members, a meal for a meal. So we at Visalis, for every meal that a community member pledges, it's $24, we at Visalis will match that. What my vision is for this community challenge and what I believe Visalis will stand for in your community, as the old saying goes, first you should look within your family, and then your community, and then grow from there to your county and your state and your government and eventually the world, right? That was the foundation that is written right there on that Constitution. When we wrote it in December, actually it was before that, it was March of 2005, right when we started writing down what we stood for principally. These are the details. It's 30 meals for $24 and we'll match it. So if you think about that, that's less than 50 cents per meal, and we're matching that. You're going to be able to make an impact. Go to the next slide, please, Philip. These are just some of the people that you'll be able to help. Think about this story here. A disabled grandfather named Ulysses, who received custody of his 2 grandchildren, relies on food bank programs to help him feed his new family. The other day, Pete Nicole put me on the phone with a food bank donor, a person who's a part of that, and he said, we are in dire need. There's a backpack program where we want to put the Visalis shake into the backpacks of these kids so that they have at least one nutritious meal during the day. Because many of them, can you imagine going through school? I can. I know what that feeling is, but going through school all day long without core nutrition. And as you know with the shake, and you've learned this weekend, it's got 27 vitamins and minerals in it. It is healthy for children. It's got enough protein and fiber. I mean, many children that we're going to help because of this cause would not get that level of nutrition, period, otherwise. And that's a powerful thing for you to be able to help. I want to go to the next story, please, Philip. Think about Pashun, a mother of 4 who's gone without food so her children could eat. I know that there's probably mothers in here that have experienced that. And when you hear stories of, Warwick Dunn's mother, and you hear stories of how mothers, their priority is to give, the fuel of life to their children, and how this particular mother has to rely on help. And we at ViSalus have a passionate community that as we're losing weight, we can help others gain it. As we're privileged enough to have been able to afford to put on some extra pounds, and I know that I've been in that category from the rich foods, we can help others actually gain it in the process. And imagine when Pashun, for example, and her children are young, under the age of 10. Imagine 10 years from now when her children are walking the stage in our stadium, when ViSalus is filling stadiums, and her children can say, because of ViSalus, I got an academic scholarship. Because of ViSalus, I was able to play high school ball, or whatever it is that the child aspired to have. They got it physically, they got it mentally, and as a result, they could become a better citizen. Poverty keeps you in poverty. It does, and we need to break that. The duty of people who are not in poverty should be to raise people up who are, and reach into those communities and let them know that there are solutions. I sat there, and, I'm so blessed to have this beautiful young boy who will never know what poverty means, but he will know how to fix it. Because that's the duty, right? The duty of all of us is if we're so privileged to have such greatness and such wealth and, the things that we have, should we not pay that forward and give that back and help others in need? I mean, should that not be the cause? You hear companies, our competition, they boast of the millionaires that they mint. How about boasting of the 1,000,000 meals that you've served? How about we do that in this community? 100,000 meals, in my opinion, could be done before the end of the year. It could be done. Now think about that. When you're out there in your local community and you're talking about your goals, and they say, what are your goals? And you talk to the most influential person, you say, I'm a part of a community that's going to serve 100,000 meals before the year is over. And you know what? We have a shot next year at serving 1,000,000 meals. Do you know what's happening in unemployment right now? It is rising. Most economists expect it to go up to 11+%. The problem is we can't reach those kids through the ViSalus opportunity with the exception of doing so through their parents. And sometimes their parents are not being seen. So we need to go to those boys and girls clubs. We need to work with our local churches, our local charities, and we need to see our products into their bodies so that we can work with the future of America, the future of this free world that we live in, so that these kids will get an education, so that they will learn, so that they will grow, so that they will have every opportunity that our children in this room will have because of the education that we've been so privileged to learn here this weekend or through our life experiences. Is that not a noble endeavor? Is that not something that we should do? Now, one of the, in your hand is an order form. Myself, Nick, and Blake, we're going to put 15,000 meals in the food bank to get started toward our goal as a community of 100,000. So 15% of our goal is done before we've even started our goal to serve 100,000 meals. 15% is done. I only ask you to contribute what you have in your heart and what you can. Fill out the order form, and at the end of the event, you can check it in. It's an anonymous thing. If you got to work on yourself first, let's get to work on yourself through ViSalus so that you one day can be like Warwick Dunn was, who went to the NFL as a freshman, as we heard earlier, and put 200 plus children in homes as a result, right? Is that not the entrepreneur that every one of us aspires to be? That's the entrepreneur. That's the role model of our society. We hear about people who have millions, people who have, nice cars and watches and cribs and all that stuff. Warwick Dunn's story should be told to more people than the story of a guy who has more money than he does brains and spends it as such. Now, one of the things that we came together with in the beginning was the injustice of education. And, this is an education here, the power of mentorship, right? I mean, did any of you take the Mentorship 101 class in college? How to find a mentor, how to learn from a mentor, how to grow from a mentor. Did anyone take that class? Any one of you take the class of mentorship in high school or elementary school? I mean, think about this. This is paramount to every successful person has always cited a mentor. Every one of them. Every single successful person. But yet we don't teach the subject of mentorship in our school system. Why? That's why ViSalus was created, and that's our success. That's why I believe I've been called to this company, and that's why I believe you've been called to this company, is we need to educate and we need to teach people, and we need to solve some social injustices that are occurring both in terms of nutrition and in terms of education. Thank you. My pride possession in life are the books that I've read. That's the most valuable asset that you could give me. So much so that as opposed to buying another car, I'll buy a rare book. Just this weekend I was inspired by a Martin Luther King quote, and I bought an original signed document by Martin Luther King to hang on my wall, just so that way I could see the inspirations that are my mentors. Because it doesn't matter if you've met a mentor or not. All that matters is that you've drinking from their deep knowledge of wealth or their experiences or the wisdom that they've sought to pass on. And that's what Mr. Wooden, Coach John Wooden, wanted to do. And the reason why I have this in my hand and the reason why I invited Don Yeager is because I've had the privilege of talking with Coach and spending time with him and getting a couple things signed to my son. And he signed a book for me, and I told you that I value these things more than anything else. And the person who actually donates the most, who can, is going to get my copy of John Wooden's signed book. So for those of you, it's anonymous. Just write it down at the end of the event. We'll see who is able to be giving. Don't go crazy. I don't want you to give anything that you can't. But I'll send out my personal copy to you for whoever wants to actually be the person of most service and contribution. Because I value the signature that is on this page. So I want to make sure you knew. If there's anything I can ever do to aspire you to give more of yourself, if you can, please take that in reflection. I set up a foundation last year, and the goal of the foundation is to spread the word of this very Constitution that we created some years ago to the youth and to the people who are not in this room, the people who have never even left maybe a 1 square mile radius of urban Detroit or urban Los Angeles, right? I got to get to those people that are in need. We got to rise them up and teach them how to be revolutionaries and change their very own community. I've spoke at churches. I spoke at charity events. I've gone across the globe, literally, to help people learn this subject of entrepreneurship, because that's what we stand for. And I'm going to read you guys this Constitution, because when we first got together as leaders, we were all in the room. And I remember I was inspired. What does ViSalus stand for? What are we going to